Hello, friends. Welcome to my new website, Tom T Talks. This is a sacred platform created with the help of my daughter and collaborator, Danielle. Nothing is more precious and powerful than a daughter's love. But of course, all of our lives are predicated on love of others. Service is love made visible, and this is one of our definitions of servant leadership. Hope to create this platform as a place for conversations, connections, and building community. It is a place where we can explore what it is to serve, what it is to learn, what it is to lead, what it is to help to continue to develop our lives so we might develop the lives and possibility for others. Every leader is a teacher, and every teacher is a leader. However, most leaders do not understand that they need to be teaching, and most teachers do not understand that they are leading. And yet, how terribly important it is. All leaders are teaching each and every day by their actions, by their conversations, by their memos, by the culture that they are trying to create, by the rituals that they share, and the stories that they engage in. Teachers lead. My wife, who was a kindergarten teacher for 28 years, all those young children entrusted to her care, who she loved and cared for like her own. We go out to the community now, 28 years later, and a tall man will come up and put his arm around my wife and say, "Oh, Mrs. T, do you remember me?" And she stares into the eyes of a man who's 6'4" and says, "Are you John?" And he says, "Yes, I am." She knew John when he was 5, and he sat in his lap, and she read him stories and taught him how to write his name. How profound of influence is that we have in the lives of other people? We are leaders. Leader comes from the Anglo-Saxon word leadeth, which means to step forward. All of you in the last 100 days, wherever you are, have taken an opportunity to step forward to serve in your community and in your family. You've taken care of your neighbors. For those of you in healthcare, social services, government agencies, have taken care of complete strangers who you never met before. You step forward. Also, the word leadeth is the root word for the word load. So any leader who steps forward ends up bearing the burdens, carrying the load of others. Have we not seen this now? As so many of our young people have reminded us that Black lives matter, all lives matter. And what they recognize is that with compassion, when they see people suffering, we must share their suffering. Good work, hard work, noble work, our work. It is the work of being an educator. Educator comes from 2 Latin words, educare. A means from, ducare means to lead. Educators lead from darkness to light. So how many times have you been working with another? How many times as a parent? How many times as a friend or in the company of complete strangers, you're having a conversation and the light comes on? Oh, I see what you're trying to say. And all of a sudden you begin to recognize that an educator brings light, especially where there's darkness. Educators to lead from ignorance to knowledge. What's extraordinary in this time, even right now as I'm sitting before you, technologically trying to communicate, I don't even know what I don't know. So I need the help and the expertise of my daughter to teach me what I don't know. Patiently, quietly, directly, she instructs me on the things that I need to start paying attention to. Are we not all that way? Are we not all humbled by what is it that we don't know, about ourselves and others, and need others to gently prod, challenge, or move us in a direction. And finally, to lead from confusion to clarity. How important that is for educators today, how important it is for leaders today to lead from confusion to clarity. No one could have seen the effects long-term of this pandemic. And many of us, after 100 days, have become terribly impatient, wondering what's going to happen next. And what are we relying upon? People who have done the inner work, who have become contemplative and reflective, so that they can begin to understand what a next step might be. Educators, to lead from darkness to light, to lead from confusion to clarity, to lead from ignorance to knowledge. This morning, I met a great educator just by watching TV. A 9-year-old little girl in Northeast Minneapolis saw what has taken place after the death of George Floyd, saw what was taking place after the demonstrations in the streets of Minneapolis, and as a 9-year-old African-American little girl, said that she wanted to do something to contribute to other people's lives. And so she asked 2 of her friends if they would join her, and they began making friendship bracelets woven together out of different threads and different colors, different textures, hoping to raise maybe $50 to contribute to Black Lives Matter and to businesses that need to rebuild. That little girl and her friends have now raised over $100,000, and that was before appearing on CBS This Morning, when the interviewer said, "Why are you doing this?" And she smiled and she said, "To make other people happy." And the interviewer followed up and said, "Why is it so important to make other people happy?" And the little girl looked at her and just very directly said, "Because that's what God wants me to do." That's what she was called to do, to lead others from our ignorance and our selfishness to saying, "I can't do anything," to saying, "Start with friendship bracelets." To lead all of us from understanding, listen, we live in a time right now where there's such despair, and this little girl with a bright smile and a couple of friends and thread says, "Let there be light." And you begin to recognize that this little girl is not ignorant to us what's going on. She's probably already experienced racism and exclusion. And what is she saying? There's a clarity in doing what is right and good and just. Good work, hard work, noble work, our work. And all of us are here today because there are other people who have invested in our lives. And those people invested in our lives at a very early age. Who are the people that were committed to helping you move from darkness to light, from ignorance to knowledge, from confusion to clarity? I dare say it was your parents and your teachers. Mrs. Gillis, 3rd grade, St. Mary's Grade School, Wisconsin Rapids, looked out and saw that Tommy Thibodeau, nice boy, but awful lazy. The only thing that boy had in his mind was getting outside and playing football at recess, not really much concerned about his schoolwork. And one day in mid-September, Mrs. Gillis looked at me and said, "Tom, you're going to stay in with me today and I'm going to teach you how to write." I said, "I don't know how to write." She said, "Exactly, get up to the board," and gave me a piece of chalk. The first day, there were letters. The second day, there were words. By the end of the first week, there was a sentence. By the end of the second week, I was on the verge of a paragraph. By the beginning of the 3rd week, I said, "Mrs. Gillis, what are we going to do today?" She said, "You're going out to play." Mrs. Gillis gave up her 15-minute break for 2 weeks to teach a lazy boy how to write. And once I could write more carefully, I began to read more carefully. And once I began to read more carefully, I experienced the joy of learning. I don't know if I'd be here today if that good person had not taken the time to help me unlock possibilities I did not see for myself. To show you it all comes around, my Dad was an attorney in Wisconsin Rapids, and before he's ready to retire, he called all of his past clients, and Mrs. Gillis came in. And she looked at him and she said, Greg, how's Tom doing? And my father says, well, he writes very well now. Sister John Marie. Oh, there's a name I'll never forget. 7th grade. And he was now 7th grade. Boys are out on a playground and they're fighting and they're jostling. And I don't know, somebody elbowed me in the mouth and split my lip. And I came in after recess and I was biting my lip and I was crying. But I didn't want to show that because tough guys don't cry. And I sat in the back of the room at my desk biting my lip. And Sister John Marie walked back there and she saw blood rolling down my chin. But she saw the tears pulling up in my eyes. She put her arm around my shoulder to shield my face from the rest of my class, protect me from the embarrassment I was feeling. And she reached into her sleeve, like a good sister, pulled out a box of Kleenex, took my face in her hands and dabbed blood, wiped away the tears. I always remember Sister John Marie. I wonder if she remembers me. Probably not. Because Sister John Marie and teachers like her were invested in the lives of other people's children, serving and leading them with dignity and care. Do not think about the cost. Do this just naturally each and every day because it's right and good and just. Sister Lorian Peterick. She was my mentor when I first began teaching at Viterbo University. Sister Lorian had forgotten more than I'll ever know, and I had the ability to team teach with her. It was extraordinary. I took notes on every conversation that we had. On Sundays, she'd get the New York Times, and then she'd read the articles, and then she'd circle the ones that I was to read to the next week. And the next time I saw her, she was asking me questions as to what I thought. She was always concerned about my ability to grow, to understand, to serve. So I'm team teaching with Sister Lorian. And one night after class, when everybody had left, we sat down across the table from each other, and she reached over and she patted me on the top of my hand. She says, oh, that was so good. I said, really? You liked what I had to say? Oh, she said, I took a lot of good notes. You said you took notes on me? Yes, I did. You've given me a lot to think about. Really? I said. Yes, she replied. And I looked at her and I said, I've always wanted to be like my mentor, Tom Etten. Tom Etten taught me in graduate school. He loved people and he loved ideas and he had a passion of bringing them together so that they be changed and transformed. And she smiled and then she shyly said, you are like Tom Etten. And I looked at her and I said, you knew Tom Etten? She smiled and said, I taught Tom Etten. And I was sitting at that table looking into the eyes of my mentor's mentor. And then you begin to recognize that teaching and learning, serving and leading is work for eternity. It shapes lives. It changes cultures. It transforms us. This is a time when those of us who are committed to servant leadership must be committed to the growth and the development of others who are entrusted to our care. No matter what our position, our institutions, or our communities, each of us has gifts to share, and we must be willing to have the courage to teach, to create environments in which other people's voices may be heard, where they can find their voice, step up and step out, and become the leaders that they are meant to be. Parker Palmer said that education is a process of creating a safe environment where the obedience to the truth may be practiced. Hasn't that been what we watched on our TV sets across this nation? Young people gathering non-violently, listening to people from different perspectives, talk about their truth, creating an environment in which strangers are now in conversation with each other about subjects that are difficult, from race to economics to politics to religious differences to the future of our planet. Is this not what leaders are supposed to do? I cannot lead people past where I am. So if I stop learning, growing, developing, what happens to those people entrusted to my care? What are the 5 books that you're reading right now? What are the articles that you're paying attention to? What are the conversations that you've had? What are the notes that you've taken? What are the ways in which you've clarified your thought? Increased your levels of understanding and knowledge, and come to the realization that you have so much to share with others. E.H. White, in his marvelous book, The Once and Future King, writes this: "The best thing for being sad," replied Merlin, "is to learn something. That's the only thing that never fails. You may grow old and trembling in your anatomies. You may lie awake at night listening to the disorder of your veins. You may miss your only love. You may see the world around you devastated by evil lunatics, or know your honor trampled in the sewers of baser minds. There's only one thing for it then, to learn. Learn why the world wags and what wags it. That's the only thing that the mind can never exhaust, never alienate, never be tortured by, never fear or distrust, and never dream of regretting. Learning's a thing for you. Learning's a thing for you. Learning is the making of meaning. As servant leaders, we describe ourselves as being on the journey. We never get there. We are constantly seeking, constantly learning, constantly discovering. One last thought this evening from the work of Otto Scharmer at MIT and his theory U. Otto Scharmer believes that we can learn from the future that's revealing itself to ourselves if we are willing to do the contemplative work of going down and discovering what is being revealed, what is calling us forth, how is it that we are evolving. And he said there are 3 things that we need to take place. 1, we must pay attention to the life of the mind. Is your mind open? Is your mind closed? How difficult it is to have conversations with people who have closed minds, people that are so certain of so many things and yet are confined by their own levels of ignorance. They have blind spots. To have an open mind, on the other hand, is to have the virtue of curiosity, of asking questions, difficult questions of ourselves and others. How is it that I am racist? How is it that I am privileged? How is it that I feel entitled? How is it that I have not given myself over to the goodness of others, like that 9-year-old little girl in Minneapolis? What will I do tomorrow? You must have an open heart. Well, if you have a closed heart, that's a heart filled with anger. It's a heart filled that's closed off because it's about others. It's about blame and shame, discrediting. To have an open heart is to have the heart of love and compassion. The Dalai Lama says that the great gift of the universe at this time is the ability to have compassion for others, to enter into their suffering, to walk with them. Isn't that what good leaders do? Teachers, parents, and friends. And finally, to have an open will, a will that's closed by not only the ignorance of a closed mind, the anger of a closed heart, but a closed will has lost hope, despair, has given up. But a will that is open, the will that you have, is the one of courage to move forward into an uncertain future. With courage, possibility, willing to fail, willing to succeed. This is the great adventure that we are on right now in serving and leading, teaching and learning. Learning's the thing for you, and I'm so glad we'll be doing it together. Until next time, peace and all good.